So you know that feeling when everything just feels heavy? The first thing you do when you wake up in the morning is grab your phone and open up social media, and before you know it, you've been scrolling for hours. You don't remember the last time you went to the gym. You've been ordering a lot more takeout, and before you know it, you have just found yourself in a mental spiral that you can't seem to get out of. And I think the worst part about being in a slump is how hard we can be on ourselves about it. We're constantly judging ourselves, like, why can't I just get it together? Like, just get up, go to the gym, it's not that hard. And that self-judgment almost just makes it worse. It makes it last longer. So if that's you right now, trust me, I get it. I have been there more times than I can count. And in today's video, I want to share with you some tips to help you regain motivation, regain momentum so that you can start feeling like yourself again. And this is pretty much what I do anytime I find myself there again. And this is not going to be a whole 10-step video because chances are if you're in a slump, that would just overwhelm you. So we're really just going to focus on small shifts that you can make to start feeling more motivated, more aligned, happier, confident again. And if you like these kinds of videos, definitely make sure to hit the subscribe button, hit the little notification bell, and without further ado, let's get into it. So like I mentioned, probably the worst part of being in a slump is your own self-criticism and judgment. Sometimes I feel like our slumps don't even need to last as long as they do, but they persist even longer because of the way we're speaking to ourselves. So that's why I think the first step to getting out of any slump is to reduce the shame spiral. Stop resisting it. Stop telling yourself that you should be doing this and you should be doing that and you should be over it already and you should be feeling more motivated. Just allow yourself to be. And I know that is so much easier said than done because if you're a high achiever and you like working towards your goals, it's frustrating when something that's outside of your control kind of stops you. And it's frustrating when you have all of these plans in place, all of these things that you want to do, but you just can't seem to get yourself to do it. But trust me, when you just allow yourself to just be in it and just accept it for what is and stop fighting it, just acknowledge that it's there and give it space. That is really when you allow yourself to move through it. And so I just want to validate you that it is okay that you're here. It is okay, even if you've been here 100 times, because trust me, I have too. We are human. Sometimes life just gets overwhelming. Sometimes we're holding on to things that we don't even realize, and things are building up within us. And then before we know it, just life feels overwhelming and hard. We fall off our routines, and it is okay, especially as women. We are cyclical beings. Like, our hormones are constantly fluctuating and changing, and we're honestly different people every single day. And sometimes that can be really hard living in a masculine world where it feels like we need to have so much structure and routine and show up the same way every single day. So something that really helps me is sort of treating myself like I would my best friend. Like if my best friend came to me and told me that she was being really hard on herself and judging herself for being in a slump, for not being able to go to the gym, for not being able to eat healthy, for not being able to do the things that she wants to do, I would not add more judgment to that. I would not criticize her for that. I would not tell her that she just needs to get over it. Instead, I would validate her and I would say, listen, it's okay that you're here right now. Like, just hold compassion for yourself. Like, it is okay that you didn't go to the gym today. It is okay that you spent your first 3 hours of your day scrolling on TikTok. It is okay. Like, it is not the end of the world. We don't always need to be these perfect people who are just constantly like following all of these healthy habits to a T and like never messing up. I have been on my personal development journey for years now, and I still wake up sometimes and the first thing I do is scroll on TikTok. And sometimes that's okay. You know, a lot of the times it doesn't make me feel good, but sometimes it is okay and it's just what I'm needing in that moment. And of course, it's not ideal to do that, but we don't need to beat ourselves up over it. The next step is to recognize and acknowledge what got you here. So take the lessons from the slump that you're in. Why is it that you're here? What is it that is preventing you from going to the gym and eating healthy and doing the things that you want to do? Like, yes, it's okay and we don't want to beat ourselves up, But if you want to move through it and you want to get out of it, you do have to ask yourself, why am I doing these things? Why do I feel the need to reach over and grab my phone and start scrolling on TikTok first thing in the morning? Like, what is it that I'm seeking? What am I distracting myself from? And you can journal on these questions. You can also go into the voice memo feature, because personally for me, I really like expressing out loud. So honestly, me and my best friend are always sending each other voice memos, just constantly reflecting about our lives. And it's actually really helpful because it allows me to analyze my behavior and sort of analyze like why I am doing certain things. Why is it that I feel the need to scroll on TikTok first thing in the morning? Why is it that I feel the need to not go to the gym? And sort of just asking yourself, what are you running from? What are you hiding from? Because oftentimes the reason we are turning to these things is because we're trying to distract ourselves. We're trying to avoid feeling something. So what is it that you are distracting yourself from? What is it that you are running from? And this is when therapy can be really helpful, because you have that space to ask yourself those questions and to also allow yourself to feel those things that you're distracting yourself from, especially if you're in somatic work. So I actually work with a psychosomatic therapist, and I really love it because I can really intellectualize my emotions. Like I said, I love analyzing my behavior and analyzing why it is that I'm doing certain things, analyzing all of my emotions, but sometimes that is just a way for me to not feel my emotions. So my weekly therapy session is kind of just like a space for me to feel those emotions. It's like all week I spent like unraveling things in my mind and overanalyzing them so that once I get to therapy, I can actually sit with those emotions and feel them and release them. So once you've kind of acknowledged, okay, this is why I'm here right now. This is why I'm feeling this way. You know, maybe it's because you're feeling overwhelmed at work. Maybe somebody said something to you that hurt your feelings. Maybe you're feeling just tired and you need a break. Maybe the way you're doing things is putting too much pressure on you. So for me, last week, I actually found myself in a slump because of 75 hard. Actually, I did not finish 75 hard, by the way. I stopped doing it day 52. So I made it 52 days. So yay for that. But I decided to stop 75 hard because it was impacting my hormones and it was adding a lot of stress to my body. But then once I stopped doing 75 hard, I kind of found myself on the opposite end of the extreme where I wasn't doing any sort of movement. I wasn't eating healthy. I was no longer tracking my macros. I was eating a lot of sweets. And that's when I found myself in a slump where I was like feeling frustrated with myself. So the lesson that I came to from all of that is that I need more balance. I don't need to put these like strict rules on myself. And I'm really happy that I challenged myself with 75 hard, and I do feel like I made it pretty far, 52 days. But now I know that things like that just don't work for me, and like that's okay. Then once you've acknowledged why it is that you're here, the next step is to make a decision to get out of it. And when it comes to making this decision, you need to act before you're ready. You need to move before you're ready. You need to start taking action before you feel ready. And that first day, I feel like is always the hardest, that first day of getting yourself out of a slump, because it literally feels like you're having to force yourself to go to the gym, even though it's the last place in the world that you want to be. You have to force yourself to read, even though you really don't want to. But it's really just in that first day, maybe even the second day, that you have to force yourself. Once you start moving through it, that's when it becomes easier. Something that really helps me when I am like ready to get out of a slump and I make that decision is watching YouTube videos. I love watching like motivational YouTube videos and just videos that inspire me. That is something that always helps. So the next tip to getting out of a slump is to think about the one habit that'll have the most impact and that will create a domino effect, and make that habit a non-negotiable. So for me, the things that really get me out of a slump are the gym and focusing on my morning routine. I know that if I have a strong morning routine, that almost gives me like a win for the day. Like I start my day off already with a win, which then allows me to carry that energy into the rest of the day. So last week when I was feeling in this slump, I wanted to focus on my mornings, because when I was in my slump, I was scrolling a lot on TikTok first thing in the morning. And then that feeling of scrolling first thing in the morning would carry into the rest of my day. And it was really hard for me to show up and do the rest of the things that I wanted to do. So I decided that was going to be my number one priority. Instead of reaching over and grabbing my phone and scrolling on TikTok, I'm going to grab my journal and I'm just going to write. I'm not going to put any sort of limit or any sort of rule on myself for how much to write, what I should write, nothing. Like, even if it's just one word, I just want to get into that habit of journaling first thing in the morning again. I started doing this a couple of years ago, and there's this concept from this book called The Artist's Way, and it's called morning pages. So the first thing you do right when you wake up is you do sort of like a stream of consciousness, like brain dump into a journal. And the book has you do 3 pages front and back of journaling. But sometimes it can feel kind of overwhelming. Like sometimes I don't have that much to write about and I don't want to put that much pressure on myself, especially as I'm getting out of a slump. So that's why I decided, like, even if it's just a sentence, even if it's just a word, I want to get back into journaling every day. And then also the gym. So this kind of goes along with my next tip, and that's to lean on medicine. And so for me, I really feel like the biggest medicine for healing is movement and food. An object in motion stays in motion. That's why it is so hard to get yourself moving when you're just laying around all day. Like on the days where I'm more sedentary, it is so hard for me to get to the gym. But when I'm already running around and I'm walking or I'm like moving a lot, it is so much easier for me to get to the gym. And I especially think that when you're getting out of a slump, don't put so much expectation on yourself. Instead of saying, I'm gonna go to the gym and I'm gonna do a 2-hour workout, no, why don't you just go to the gym, walk on the treadmill for 10 minutes, and that's it. Just slowly get yourself through it. So for me, what I did earlier this week when I was getting out of my slump is I signed up for a hot Pilates class on Monday and then a hot yoga class on Tuesday, because I knew that those are really easy for me to do when I am not really feeling like going to the gym, because all you have to do is show up. That's literally it. You just have to show up. And once you're there, once you're in that environment where everybody else is moving their body, you're gonna also want to move your body. Like, it's just natural for you to want to like move your body when everybody else is moving your body and you're just in that environment where it's motivating and it's fun and it's exciting and you're also just like following instructions from an instructor, so you don't have to think about it. And when I did that Monday and Tuesday, Wednesday I felt a lot better and I was like, okay, I'm gonna go to the gym now, and now I'm gonna take myself through my own workout. The next tip is to focus on little wins. Like I said, it can be really hard when you have such big expectations for yourself, and that can be very overwhelming when you're in a slump. You look at your to-do list and it literally feels so overwhelming. You're like, absolutely not. I don't want to do any of that. So just focus on small things. Focus on washing your face, putting on SPF, putting on moisturizer, brushing your teeth, getting dressed for the day. These are small things that make you feel better. And those are little wins that you can celebrate. Making your bed. It literally takes 5 minutes, but it's a small win for the day. The next tip to getting out of a slump is to stop isolating and to lean on community, to lean on support. So whenever I'm in a slump, the first thing that I usually do is I isolate. It is so much harder for me to spend time with people or to go to events when I'm in a slump because I just don't feel good. I don't want to be around people because it takes so much of my energy. But isolating really just makes it worse. So you almost have to force yourself a little bit. Like, even if you don't want to, call up a friend and see if you can do something that doesn't require that much of you. Maybe you go to a movie with a friend. That's easy because you don't have to talk to each other. Maybe you're not in the mood to talk and you just want to be around somebody. So you go to a movie, or maybe you go get coffee. Maybe you go to a yoga class together. That is something that really helps me, especially if it's a positive, like inspiring environment. It always helps to kind of get me out of my own head. The next tip to getting yourself out of a slump is to clean and declutter your environment. Clutter in your environment creates clutter in your mind. And if you're anything like me, whenever you find yourself in a slump, your environment takes a hit. Maybe the dishes are piling up, your clothes is piling up, you have stuff everywhere. And I really feel like that has an impact on your energy. So something I love doing whenever I'm in a slump is I will put on one of those like motivational or inspiring YouTube videos that I was talking about earlier, or a podcast that I really like, and I will just deep clean. And it feels like self-care to me to deep clean. It feels like I am just taking care of myself, and that is a really big win, especially when you're in a slump. And then the last tip is to do a social media audit. So what is it that you're consuming? Usually whatever it is that you're consuming directly correlates to how you're feeling. So whenever I find myself in one of these moods, it's pretty obvious because my TikTok feed tends to be more on the negative side. You know, maybe I have unconsciously found myself watching a lot of news, especially with everything happening right now in the world. Like, it is so easy to get caught up in constantly consuming that stuff, and before you know it, it's affected your mindset, your mood, your energy. So I like to set boundaries with myself with what I'm consuming on social media. I tell myself, okay, I'm done consuming anything that has to do with politics, at least for right now. I'm done consuming any sort of negative content around dating, for example. That's something that I'm really focusing on right now as I'm getting back into the dating world, is I don't want to consume any sort of negative content about men or dating in general, because then it just has me feeling more hopeless, and I want to instead feel more positive and more hopeful for what's out there and for this next step in my life. When I was really struggling with my finances, I was constantly consuming content about how the job market is terrible and how the economy is terrible, and that was just making it worse for me. So really take an audit, like, what is it that you're consuming? And just be more mindful of it and create boundaries around it. Check in with yourself and ask yourself, is this empowering? Is this helping me? And if it's not, you can just click not interested, you can scroll past, you can unfollow, do whatever it is that you need to do to protect your peace. I really hope that this video helped you, and I just want to remind you that it is okay if you're in a slump. It happens to all of us. And honestly, after a slump, the comeback is so much stronger. I always feel way more inspired, more motivated, and with so much more clarity. So honestly, we need to be grateful for our slumps because they teach us so much about ourselves. So just remind yourself it is okay that you're here and take the steps necessary to move through it. That's going to be it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next one.